All right, well, here we are. And Blake, I cannot believe it. This
Uh,
is like the sun is setting on our 2024 career fair. I feel sad. Our speakers have been awesome.
mhm.
And we're not done yet, though. I'm super excited about Laura Klepper today. And she's going to share a little bit about her background in aviation. So I want to go ahead and give her as much time as possible. So we're going to hand the mic off to you, Laura. Thank you for being here. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Hopefully everybody can hear me. My name is Laura Klepper. Although at work, you would hear me referred to as Ditch, and I will get back to that in a few minutes. So don't let me forget, we're going to talk about that. Let me first share my screen for just a second so I can show you some of the things I'm going to talk about, so you're not just looking at my face, and then we'll get to the actual content. Okay, so if you can see that, there are four quadrants there. In the upper left, these are the things I'm going to talk about. So there's the overview. Talk about what is military service at all? What does it mean to serve in the military? Why do we even call it service? Why isn't it just a job? What makes it different than maybe some other things? What are the different branches and how you can join? If you are interested, what different job options there are. And then, so that's in the bottom left quadrant, that's the military service section. Then I'll talk about my specific experiences. I'll talk about flying. I'll show you a little video because videos of jets are fun. I'll talk a little bit about how flying training goes, about deploying, because when you talk about military, that's always a question people ask is what's a deployment like? And do you have any choices when it comes to it? The military has come a long way as in terms of accommodating families and personal desires instead of just, okay, go here, do that. So I'll cover that a little bit more in my experience with deployments. And then finally, in the bottom right, the green box, what about you? So this is a career fair, right? So if you're interested in the military as a career, what can you do? What are some of your options? What are the requirements? And finally, there's some resources. So if you're interested in this screen, I'll leave it up for a little bit. And if you want to screenshot it, you can, or you can always come back to the recording later and check out those resources. Okay, so starting out with military service, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen for just a second because I want to make eye contact with this. This part, I think, it is important to me. Military service is not just a job. So why do we call it service? Let me start off with a parallel. So there's the police force, and there's the fire department, there's ambulances. These are all services that provide critical things to people within our country. So the police enforce the laws, fire department responds in an emergency, the same thing with ambulance to take care of people. And these are all things that we have within our country. The military focuses outside our borders and provides a lot of the same services as those others that you're maybe more familiar with within our borders. So let me start first with the disaster response kind of side. So we talked about the fire department and ambulances. The military can actually provide some of those same services to other countries. For example, a few years ago when there was a big earthquake in Haiti, the president activated the military, sent us to Haiti, and we provided medical, we brought food, we airlifted supplies to a country that their own domestic ability to respond to the emergency was overwhelmed. So they asked us for help, and we went in to help. So that is one side of the military that people don't necessarily think of right off the bat, but that is a big part of what we do. And then the other side that we do is we provide the country, specifically the president, the executive branch. We provide options. And what I mean by that is you've probably studied some civics, some economics, things like that. You've studied probably the way different countries interact with each other. And there are lots of different ways that countries can communicate. There are treaties, there are conventions. We get together in groups like NATO or groups like the UN to discuss how we're going to interact with each other as countries. And that can resolve a lot of things, but sometimes that is not enough. And so what the military provides our country is a enforcement capability. So you think of it like the police. If people aren't following the laws, and there's an enforcement possibility. The military is the president's way to enforce national policy outside our borders. So that is, I wanted to put that up front because if you're not on board with that, then the military is probably not for you. That does not mean that all of us in the military are warmongers. We're definitely not. We would rather everything be resolved peacefully. And then, hey, I wouldn't have to deploy. But if it's necessary, that is what we do. And I'll get to that a little bit later when I talk about my experience and some specific deployments I've been on. Okay, so with that out of the way right off the bat, let me go back to screen sharing and let's see what else we're going to talk about. Let's see. Here we go. So other things about the military service. So I'm in the bottom left on the red quadrant. We've already talked a little bit about what military service is. Now for the branches, and there's a new branch you probably all heard a couple of years ago. We got the 6th branch of the armed services, the Space Force. But quickly, I'm going to go through some of the unique characteristics of each one in case you're trying to decide, hey, what would I be interested in joining? So starting off with the Army, that is the largest branch. They are the ground force. When people talk about boots on the ground, those are the boots on the ground. That's the Army. They can go anywhere in the world, and they are a heavy hitter presence is the Army. If you like tanks, they're the ones with the tanks, that sort of thing. Second, Navy. Navy is it's probably obvious, but Navy is on the water. What I will say about that is if you join the Navy, you will end up on a boat at some point. Whereas when I get further down into, say, the Air Force, if you join the Air Force, you won't necessarily be on an airplane because there are lots of other jobs in the Air Force that support the flying role, but that aren't flying themselves. Same thing with Space Force. Just because you're in the Space Force doesn't mean you're going to space. It means you are supporting the force that operates in space. But in the Navy, you are going to end up on a boat. So if you like that, then the Navy might be a good option. The Marine Corps is a subset of the Department of the Navy. It is separate from the Navy, so it is its own branch. But their big thing is the transition between water and land. So they're the ones who storm the beaches. They, as you are probably aware, they're very into fitness. So if you like that fitness culture, they are fanatical about that. So that if that is that's a good fit for you, then the Marine Corps might be interesting. But you will have to swim, so don't forget about that. It's not just land for Marines. So Marines bridge the gap between riding on the Navy ship and then getting onto land. Next, the Air Force. The Air Force split off from the Army in the 40s after World War II, when we realized that controlling the air required a different way of thinking rather than controlling the land. And the way the Army was using air power was not optimized for air power. So the Air Force split off, and now we focus solely on the air domain. We call them domains, so that the land domain, the maritime domain, the air domain. And then now we have the Space Force, which split off from the Air Force. Well, it split off really from all the forces because all the forces had a component of space. The Space Force focuses on the space domain, so everything outside of air and beyond, as they like to say. So they'll deal with the satellites. They do a lot of tracking of space debris. You may have heard about that. There's a lot of stuff floating around in space, and it can run into our satellites and mess things up. So that's what Space Force does. And finally, the Coast Guard. The Coast Guard is unique in that they are under the Department of Homeland Security. So they are effectively a law enforcement role around our coastal waters. But they are a branch of the military, and they can deploy in certain situations. Okay, so that's a little bit about each of the branches. And if you are interested in any particular branch, then Google them. They've got a website, and I'm sure they've got videos. You can learn more about the specific branches you might be interested in. Okay, my last point on military service is the different types. And this is something that I didn't really know until I was looking into joining. So that's why I think it might be useful to hear about now in a career fair kind of setting, the different flavors of members within the armed services. So the one everyone's familiar with, that first one on the bottom sticky note, the bottom red sticky note, is active duty. That is where you are full time. You go to your job every day. You deploy if you need to. You stay home and train if you're not needed to deploy. And that is that's a full time job. The second one down, reserve. Reserve duty is either full time or part time. And that division is kind of interesting because there are full time reservists. The difference is the reservist chooses where they live, but they're still going to work every day and they're full time. The other side is the part time reservist. So you've probably heard about that. 1 week in a month, 2 weeks a year is you go and you drill. So you're maintaining your readiness, your training, but you have a different full time job outside of the military. And then finally, guard, which is similar to reserve in that it's either part-time or full-time, but guard is also tied to a state. So like the California Air National Guard, Fresno has an Air National Guard unit at our airport, and they fly F-15Cs, which is similar to the one I used to fly. That's the F-15E. So if you've seen them around, they're pretty loud. You'll probably notice them if you hear them, you'll want to look up. That's the Fresno Air National Guard. They have full-time positions and they have part-time positions. So a part-time pilot in the Air National Guard would fly maybe a couple times a month, just enough to stay current, to remember how to fly. And then if needed, they would deploy, but they're kind of like a reserve force as well. They don't go often and they're not full-time, but the guard is tied to the state in that if the state of California had some kind of problem, they could activate the guard. So wildfires, for example, the guard will sometimes respond to wildfires to supplement the other state resources. So guard is under the state as well as federal, the president. So they can deploy outside the country and they can also deploy within the state to some kind of state responsibility. And then finally, there's a division of officer versus enlisted. Enlisted, you don't need a college degree, so you can join straight out of high school. And that can be appealing if you want a steady job right off the bat. You sign some papers and you know you've got a job for the next couple of years, however long you sign up for. And you know what you're going to do. And that stability is appealing sometimes. And what I do, and for people who have this as an option, I would recommend is go officer. The Air Force or the military will pay for a college degree, and I'll talk a little bit at the end about how to do that. So if you sign up for, say you go to Fresno State and you go there for 4 years and you do ROTC for 4 years, then once you graduate, you are a commissioned officer is the term. A commissioned officer has to have a bachelor's degree, and you serve for 4 years as basically your payback for your 4 years of college. And then after your 4 years of active duty is done, then you free agent, do whatever you want. You can stay in the Air Force longer. You can take your skills and go find a civilian job. You can do a combination of both. You can, in that you could get a civilian job, but still stay a reservist and have like that as a part-time supplemental income. You have a lot of options. All right, so that's pretty much it for the military service, kind of nuts and bolts. Moving on to the upper right, the yellow quadrant. So experience. First, let me see if this works to show you a fun flying video, because I like flying videos. Let's see if I can do this. There we go. You guys seeing that video?
Awesome.
Does that work?
Is 70% water. And 30% land. But the entire sky belongs to us.
Okay. I like jet videos, so that was fun for me too. Uh, I'm not gonna lie, flying is the reason I joined the Air Force. I love when I was a kid, I would just stare out the window whenever we fly, in a commercial airplane, and because I just love being off the ground. And put this back in. There we go. And I also loved roller coasters. So you combine those two, and you get a fighter jet, and it's a lot. It's a lot of fun. So I'm not gonna lie, it's a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun. And if that sounds exciting to you, then I can, at the end, we'll come back to this. I'll tell you about a path. I'll talk about my path a little bit, and I can tell you about some of the different paths you can take if you want to do the same thing. Let's see. Are Top Gun movies a real thing? To some extent, there is some, I guess, theater involved in that. But how about I can go through a day in the life in the fire squadron, because what Top Gun shows you is bits and pieces, right? So I did say it's a lot of work. So I'll start off with that. 12-hour days, if you're flying, are to be expected, but you're only flying about an hour and a half of that. You show up about 5 hours before you take off. Everything goes from takeoff time. So 5 hours prior is when you show up, and you, with the other people that you're going to be flying with that day, you spend maybe 3 hours or so planning your mission. So let's start with training environment. So if I'm training and I'm going to be flying above, the skies of California, then some of the things I want to look at are the weather. What's the weather doing here? Which weather you hear is usually pretty good, but not always everywhere. So you still want to check it every single time before you fly, to include how cold it is up there, because that affects how your engines work. If there's icing, then you get ice on your wings. That's no good. That ruins the air going over your wings, and that can affect being able to take off even. So you check the weather, you check the area where you're going to go. What are the rules for the particular training area you're going to go? Here on the coast, we have training areas over the water, which is convenient because there are fewer rules when you're out over the ocean than there are when you're over land. When you're over land, you don't want to fly supersonic, because then it'll make a sonic boom, and that's scary to people on the ground, and it's really loud, and nobody likes that. Nobody on the ground likes that. So you can't do that, but you can do that out over the water. So you can fly a lot faster when you're out of the water. So you look at the rules of where you're going to go. You look at now, what's my mission going to be? So say we're training for one thing that this jet does. The Strike Eagle is it's kind of its bread and butter is the self-escort strike. And what that means is self-escort is you get yourself to where the target is. Strike is you strike the target, and then you get yourself back out, as opposed to having other aircraft escort you. So other aircraft go with you to fight off anybody else that might get in the way, and let you drop your bombs, and then you come back out. So anyway, if I'm going to do that kind of mission, I need to plan against what kind of enemy aircraft might I see? Do I have the right missiles for that? What kind of missiles do I need to plan? How many missiles does everybody need? How many can I shoot on the way in and save some so I can get on the way back out, and in case anybody pops up on the way home? What kind of bombs do I need for what kind of target? What is my target? Where is my target? So all of these things you're planning. You spend a few hours doing that. And then you spend an hour just briefing is what we call it. So you're basically just talking about what you're going to do. The different people who planned the different aspects, like one person would brief, this is the adversary that we plan to see in the air. So these are the kind of aircraft you may see. And of course, this is training. So what you're going to see is other jets that look exactly like you, because they're your squadron mates who are flying against you to provide that training. But you pretend that they are bad guy aircraft, and you shoot pretend missiles at them, of course. But you discuss as if it's the real thing. And then you go out to your jet, you start it up, you make sure all the systems are good, you take off, you fly for about an hour and a half. Because in a fighter, that's about how much gas you've got, unless you aerial refuel. You come back, you land, you get back inside the building, you grab a quick bite to eat and a drink, and then you go right into debriefing. And you spend about 3 hours debriefing, talking, looking at the videos from your aircraft, the HUD videos, the videos of different systems you've got, and seeing what went well, what did not go well, what can I do better. Something that's really big in the fire community in particular and aviation in general is, how can I be better? How can I always be better than I was before, so that I am as ready as I can be if this becomes real. And I'll take that as my segue, because I don't want to spend too long on the day in the life part. I'll segue into deployments. So I have deployed 5 times, have about 800 combat hours, most of which was close air support. Close air support is becoming an old mission, because that's what we did in Afghanistan for a long time. And now with the Middle East kind of slowing down, we're not as involved there anymore. We're shifting mindset to what's the next fight. My particular experience may not be what you would have should you join, but some of the commonalities I would mention would be, the first time you deploy, should you deploy, it becomes real. You've been training for years, you've been flying for years, or however long you've been training up until your deployment. And then when you actually deploy and it's the real thing, you feel like your training was worth it. You feel like the years and the effort you've put in was worth it, and that you're making a difference. That to me is a big validation of all the work that I put in, is when it is real and when I'm doing something, making a difference. For close air support in particular, that was a favorite mission of mine. I'm a backseater in this jet. It's a 2-seat jet. So speaking of Top Gun, I'm Goose basically, except there's a little bit more to it than just yelling at the pilot. It's mostly bombs in this jet. So the pilot flies us to the place, and then I, in the backseat, work the bombs to drop on the ground. So what we do in close air support is we talk to someone on the ground. So we talk to a counterpart, say in an Army convoy, for example. And a convoy in Afghanistan, those are extremely dangerous, because the enemy tries to attack the convoys. They're more vulnerable when they're moving around. So I might fly over the convoy, and if they get shot at, then I would drop a bomb on the area that their shooting is coming from to make the shooting stop so our convoy can continue. So to me, it felt very protective. I felt a kinship with the Army guys on the ground. So, and I felt like what I was doing was making a difference for them, for those individual Americans who were in harm's way. So that to me was I felt like I was making a difference in individuals' lives, as well as, there's the bigger altruistic, am I making a difference in the world? Am I making the world safer? Maybe, but at the moment, what I feel is that I'm helping that American on the ground who's in danger. So I guess what I would say is, regardless of what branch or regardless of what deployment, there's the serving for the people to your left and right. You are helping out your brothers and sisters in arms. And that is the motivation that you feel day to day. You may have different motivation for joining, but once you're there, that is what keeps people going. I would say, so let me answer this question real quick in the chat. A woman, predominantly male occupation, absolutely. And particularly in a fighter squadron, there's only about 2% or so females in fighters. It's more like 10% in aviation, and then across Air Force writ large, it's higher. It's more like 40 or 50%. Let me answer this kind of sideways. So the military is a microcosm of the United States. The military is maybe a little bit behind the United States in that women started doing stuff in society earlier than the Air Force, or earlier than the Army at the time let them do stuff in the Army. Flying is the same way. Like, women weren't allowed to fly in combat until the 90s. And then they weren't allowed to fly fighters for a little bit longer than that. So it's kind of been a slow road. But where we are right now, we are becoming more inclusive. The military is becoming more inclusive and is recognizing individuals more, instead of, oh, you're the collective, you're just all the same, and I'm just going to give you this group an order and you guys are going to go do your orders. It's a very outdated, I guess, view of the military, and now there is more emphasis on the individual contribution. I would say for being a woman in a fighter squadron, I did not feel, for the most part, anybody think anything differently of me, except for maybe a couple of the older people, like some of the instructors who were like 60-year-old retirees. So they were in the military in like the 70s when women weren't flying yet. They see women flying, they're like, oh, this is a new thing. This is so weird. But for the younger current generation, that's now, it's not really worth a comment anymore, which is great. I want it to get to the point where it's not worth a question. The question doesn't even come up. It's like, it's not even a big deal. The other part to that answer, I would say, is I did feel like I needed to be better than other people. I needed to be better than my male counterparts in order to not stick out, if that makes sense. Like if I was a subpar flyer, if I was not good at my job, then people might think, oh, well, she's female, she's just not good at it. But if I'm good at my job, then nobody thinks anything of me being female, which sounds kind of weird and maybe a little unfair, but to me, I found it motivating. Like I wanted to be the best, not because I'm female, but because I have that attitude. And therefore, because I was good at my job, people just treated me like one of the guys. I'm just one of the bros. I'm a fellow aviator and I'm doing my job and I'm doing a good job, and that's all there is to it. So yes, call signs are a real thing. I'll come back to that real quick and then we'll open up for more questions. Goose was the backseater in Top Gun. Maverick was a front seater. My call sign is Ditch. Here's my name tag. Ditch Klepper. Ditch is a maneuver. It's where you are. Forgive me showing with my hands because I don't have a jet. So if you're flying along and somebody's flying behind you and they're trying to shoot you, you turn upside down and pull like that. That's a ditch. I didn't really expect to do that, so sorry, that was a little bit awkward. Okay, so you're there we go. This is you. You're flying, and this is somebody trying to shoot you. You shoot a missile at someone, usually from the back, and you don't want them to shoot that missile at you. So you turn and you pull back towards them, and then they shoot over you. It's kind of like in the original Top Gun when he says, "I'm going to throw on the brakes and I'll fly right by." Yeah, it's not quite like that, but it's a similar kind of maneuver. It's called a ditch. Anyway, that's why you get away from someone quickly if they're trying to shoot a missile at you. I have not done that in an aircraft, but I did in my truck when I rolled it from not paying attention. I was not texting, I was eating, but I was not watching the road. And my truck went in a ditch. So I ditched in a ditch in my truck. So that's my story. Most of the call signs you hear are from doing something not well. They're usually, people give you that call sign making fun of you. Like nobody's ever actually named Maverick because that sounds cool, right? It's the call signs are usually your bros making fun of you. But yeah, so my call sign is Ditch, and most of my friends that I work with call me that outside of work. So like you saw in Top Gun, they call each other by the call signs outside of work, and you think, oh, that's so weird. But that's how we know each other. That's how we get to know each other. And when we deploy together and we live together, you get very close to those, to your brothers and sisters in arms, and calling each other by our call sign. That's just what we do. Okay, let's see. Do I have anything else for my actual briefing? I kind of got off topic. I guess the only thing I'll quickly say, okay, can you guys see that now? Or am I not screen sharing? I'm not. There we go. Okay, so the last thing, so bottom right, how the ways you can join. So I talked briefly about, you can list straight out of high school. You just Google a service you're interested in, find a recruiter and talk to them. You need a degree. I did see a question earlier in the chat about equivalency degrees. and those are accepted. You might have to do extra paperwork for that, but talk to the recruiter and they can get that paperwork for you. But yeah, equivalency are accepted, but they might sometimes need some kind of additional either evidence, or you might have to talk to somebody else. Bottom line is you can still do it, but talk to the recruiter about how to do it, because I don't have a lot of details on that. ROTC is when you go to college and you take your college classes, and you also do the ROTC class. I know Fresno State has it, and I have some contacts there if anybody's interested in that particular path. And then the bottom right in the little green sticky, you'll see resources. So there's the Air Force, there's Air National Guard websites. That's my personal email address down there. If you want to ask me questions, feel free to send me an email and I will respond. And I can put you in contact with, I know some people at the Fresno Air National Guard, and I know people at Fresno State ROTC, Air Force and Army ROTC, if you're interested in either of those. And then finally, requirements. So there's a physical fitness test for each service, but they're all different based on what that service values. So I talked briefly about the Marine Corps having a big gung-ho kind of fitness attitude. Their physical fitness test is more strenuous than the Air Force one, for example. Like I couldn't do the Marine one, but I do the Air Force one. So there is a physical component, but the different services treat that differently. Mental, I would say it's mental resilience as far as being able to set goals, achieve your goals, and when something comes up to block you from your goals, figure out a way around it. Those are the mental skills that in general in life, I would say are useful skills, but particularly in the military where sometimes things are difficult. Deploying is not always the easiest thing. Leaving your family for a while is not the easiest thing, but those mental skills will help you get through that. And then finally, time. You would sign up for a specific amount of time. Either you enlist for a certain number of years, or if you do ROTC, like I mentioned, you do 4 years of college and then you 4 years of active duty after that. Or if you're a reservist, the different time commitments vary based on the reserves and the guard. So you have to look into the specifics of what you're looking at joining. Okay, so with that, I'm going to stop sharing and I will see what other questions we might have.
Thank you so much, Laura. That was wonderful. I learned a lot, and I hope our students learned a lot as well. Just kind of a curious question. So my brother-in-law, well, my sister-in-law, her husband's a helicopter pilot. He's been a helicopter pilot for years, and he recently had a close call. He's had several close calls over the years. Have you had any close calls with the nature of the work that you're doing?
I had one. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I'll tell you. So this is baby.
Hi.
He just woke up. So here we go. Last couple
All
minutes.
good. All good.
I had one close call, and this was in training, and we had two. So when you normally fly around in a fighter community as two ships, you call them. So two jets flying together for mutual support. So if one's facing one direction, the other can see, a bad guy sneaking up on you kind of thing. So you always have usually two of you. And then the other jet we were flying with was supposed to turn left, and they turned right into us. And we passed within about a wingspan of each other. Like it was very close. It was one of those, if it had been slightly different, like, forgive me showing hands again. So we were supposed to, let's see, I'll do it this way. We were supposed to fly like this, and we were supposed to go together like that. Instead, we went like this, and they turned into us. So
wow.
looking this way, we were supposed to go, oop, baby touching the screen. Can you still see me?
Okay. We can, yes.
Okay, we were supposed to go this way together. Instead, we went like this. And then at the last second, this one, he saw that he did pulled off like this. Otherwise, we would have literally like running right into each other.
Wow.
So
wow.
It is, flying is fundamentally dangerous. And I would say the military profession is fundamentally dangerous. But what you do to make it safer is you train over and over and over again to get better and better. You learn from your mistakes and improve, and you always have the attitude of professionalism. I'm doing this safely. I'm not gonna. We make fun of Maverick, so I'm coming back to Top Gun, because he was a showboater. He was the kind of guy who really would hurt, who would kill people, who would be unsafe, and I would never want to fly with him. That character, I absolutely not, because he was unsafe. And you can do things that push the envelope and still be safe doing it. It's walking that fine line where the skill in, particularly in fighters, really comes out, to do what the jet can do and push it and get better, but still stay safe and not needlessly injure yourselves or break equipment. You don't want to do the enemy's job for you, right? You don't want to injure yourself and make it easier on them.
Yeah. Any other questions? Blake, I have a whole list of questions. Like, have you done Fleet Week? Like, my mind's just like going berserk. But Blake, do you have any other questions or anyone? Oh, okay.
It's a good one. Yeah. And I actually had that in my notes, but I didn't cover it because I kind of walked through at the end. That's a great question. So I did active duty for 12 years. I met my husband while active duty. And so the last, we met at about the 10-year mark. And then at about the 12-year mark, we got separate assignments, and we were looking to start a family, but we got separate assignments. So I decided to go reserves. So I'm now a reservist. When I'm not on reserve duty, I'm a stay-at-home mom to 3 kids, homeschooling mom. So my kid goes to Yosemite Valley, and my oldest, and baby doesn't go to school yet. And I do 5 weeks of reserve duty a year. So I'm a kind of a type of reservist where instead of 1 week in a month, 2 weeks a year, I group all my days together. So I actually just got off of orders a couple weeks ago. I was gone for 5 weeks. And then the rest of the time I'm stay-at-home mom. Baby does not have a call sign yet. His name is Marcus, but we'll see. We'll see what he wants to do with his life. But as far as balancing work and home, the military and the Air Force in particular, because that's where I have more experience, has gotten better about considering the needs of the families. So when I mentioned that about how my husband and I got separate assignments, the following year they changed the policy to where it used to be, if the Air Force would just send you where they needed you, and if you wanted to change your assignment, you would have to try to appeal up the chain and get your assignment changed. So I tried to do that, and I was unsuccessful. So that's why I switched to the reserves, so I could choose where to live. And I chose to live at the same place where my husband was. And the following year, they changed the policy to be basically the opposite. In order to split up a married couple, it requires 2-star approval. So a 2-star general has to approve that, which is very, very rare. So the following year, some friends of mine, another married couple, were facing the same kind of situation, but they found her a job at the same place where he had to go, instead of where, in my case, my husband had to go to this one place, and then instead of finding me a job there, they said, okay, you're just going to go to this other base. So it is getting better. I mentioned briefly earlier the military is a microcosm of the country. And the country, I see our society as becoming more interested in family life balance in general. And the military is slowly following that trend. So I did not ever deploy with kids. My deployments were all when I was both single and then married. And I've been the spouse who deployed. I've been the spouse who stayed home while my husband deployed. Neither of which is easy. But you have to me, I think, look at the long game. Like, what is what I'm doing now getting me to where I want to be in the future with my family? So if I'm deploying now, that is getting me to where I want to be um, as as far as getting my service done and getting my paycheck now, so that later I can have kids and I can get out and only work part-time. So because I saved money, you make more, as a quick side note, you make more money on deployment because you don't pay taxes. So for the time that you are deployed, you are not paying income tax at home, federal or state income tax when you're home. So you make more money on deployment and you save that money, and then maybe you can retire earlier or whatever. So if you think in terms of your long-term goals, then that helps you get through temporary difficulties. And if you can do that with your family, with your spouse, then you can get through those difficulties together.
All right. Blake, do you have any last minute questions or want to take us out of here?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think Laura's already addressed it, but just want to ask just to double check. Sometimes with these recordings, will go up later on our YouTube channel. Our other students will get to go and watch it back, and they might have a lot of questions. And so basically, is it all right if Jonathan or I get some of those questions, compile a list, send them over to you to get them answered on behalf of our students?
Sure. Yeah, no problem.
Awesome. Well, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time, taking that time out of your busy schedule to come here and share everything with us. It was fascinating, a lot of really cool information, and we just really, us as well as all of our students, really appreciate you taking the time to speak to us today.
Thank you. Absolutely. I enjoyed it. I hope it was helpful for some people.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So thank you so much. And for our students, we have one more speaker to wrap up our 4th annual career fair at 3 o'clock. So make sure to come and check that out. And one more time, thank you, Laura, so much for being here. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks. You too. Bye.